Hello, and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror, movies, and awesomeness. This week, we have a supplemental. We continue looking at the Candyman films with the 1995 film Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. I sound way more excited about this movie than perhaps is fair. So we'll see. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media. With me from Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the Pen America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
Swallow your horror and let it nourish you.
Yes.
He's not the best at following directions. He likes to do it his own way.
That is, it's a decent line. Also in Denver, color commentary from Julie Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello, and I just have to say that Jason was on Borgo Pass, the Borgo Pass podcast. Is that what it's called? The Borgo Pass podcast?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Borgo
This
Pass
week,
podcast.
yeah,
Yep.
this weekend, and he referred to himself as the Batman of our podcast. So we
I
have
don't
to
think
we
I
have to
called
we have
myself.
to we have to make fun of him for that a little bit.
I don't
I told
remember
you-
saying that I was
Oh, so
Batman.
you're
Yeah, you totally said that.
Batman now.
I was going to say,
You're
Jason, aren't
Batman.
your parents still alive?
Right? My parents are alive. I didn't say I was Batman.
Oh,
I
okay,
said that sometimes I let other people take over the show. Like Batman sometimes lets other people take over being Batman.
that is different from you being Batman. How exactly?
But Batman
Wait.
always comes back, and then I said, like Jean-Paul Valley can only be Batman for a few months, just
Oh,
indicating
you just blew my mind. I had no idea.
that anybody else had ever been Batman. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and,
thought it
and
was
that's a
just
level
always
of
I don't think
geekiness.
I've ever gotten into the depths of my geekiness. I don't think I've ever gotten into all the replacement Batman.
Okay,
I had no
But
idea.
listeners
Spared
will note that is Jason saying he's the Batman of this podcast.
Jason, how are you? How are you at Krav Maga?
Yeah. No.
I believe that you might be an astute detective, but I think of you as more of a
I'm way
Columbo
more Nero
type.
Wolf than I am Bruce Wayne. That's for sure. Yeah, I'm much more Sebastian Cabot than I am Christian
Although if you
Bale.
have Bruce Wayne's money, can I take out a loan?
Right.
Yeah, me
And
too.
finally, lead singer, slap bassist for Austin's Rockabilly Riot Girl band Danger Cakes, upright bassist for the Queergrass Americana outfit Brand New Key, Jamie Barr is also the executive director of the nonprofit organization Girls Rock Austin, empowering girls, trans, and non-binary youth through the music, education, and mentorship. Welcome, Jamie.
Thanks for having me back.
No, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I love how you always introduce everyone, Jason, because I get excited when you are introducing everybody, and I want to do that like like I want to cheer like we're at a sporting event. I'm like,
Yeah, me
Julia!
Do you know something?
Clapping. Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
honestly believe
not
that your
making
life
tortillas.
is made better. Your life is made better if every time you enter a room, you imagine, and now, and you just sort of,
But when
No.
when Jamie was clapping, was she clapping or was she spanking Drew? Because that is I understand a thing that happens in that house.
not. I'm sure that we're not meant to share any of those things. So
I promised I
Oh.
would. So
It's because of
you're-
Drew's birthday coming up, but his birthday is on Tuesday.
Happy
birthday.
Hey,
Happy
birthday! Let's
Drew being a wise ass
Overshare.
asked me if I was gonna give him
spank his wise ass.
yes,
Right.
if I was gonna give him his birthday spankings, and I told him that I actually had indeed called his mother to find out
Huh.
the exact time of day that she went into labor so we could start the spankings on the hour every hour.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sure Drew
So-
went, well, now that you've involved my mother, let's
No,
not.
he like
Right.
Yeah.
was drinking at the time and almost like spit out his
That's
water
great.
and was choking. Yeah, this very sexy,
Times.
loving moment. Like, yeah.
And I
Mhm.
just thought at that moment, let's share this with thousands of people.
Would it be cool
Yeah.
actually if I just picture, you know, Drew having to recite something like Tim Matheson in Animal House, but it'd be like something genre appropriate, like I am the whisperer in the classroom. I don't know. It's all right. The film.
Sorry. I was a little bit delayed too. I was like, ha ha, and then it got funnier as
Yeah.
time went by.
No. The
Uh,
film Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh. Oh boy. Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh is a
Tell us how
1995
you really felt,
American.
Jason.
Right. You know, we've definitely seen way worse movies on this
Some
show.
of which that you have selected.
Yes, absolutely.
Vampire
in theory-
Hookers. I think that was one of yours.
Oh yeah, you know, you're right. Vampire Hookers is way worse than this movie. I feel better. I feel better already. That's Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh is a 1995 American supernatural slasher film directed by Bill Condon, who followed this movie up with his Oscar-winning turn directing Gods and Monsters. That is the next movie he made after
Really?
this. Yes,
Wow, that
I
is good.
know. So anyway, Bill Condon, and starring Tony Todd, Kelly Rowan, William O'Leary, Bill Nunn, Matt Clark, and Veronica Cartwright. So it's a respectable cast. Written by Rand Ravitch and Mark Kruger. It's a sequel to Candyman, which itself was an adaptation of Clive Barker's short story The Forbidden. This one's in New Orleans. A school teacher is targeted by the Candyman, the powerful spirit of the murdered son of a slave who kills those who invoke him. So this film came out in 95, so just 3 years after the original. I want to get people's opening thoughts. I'm dying to hear what you had to say about it. So let's go Jamie, Drew, Julia, and then I'll go Jamie. Opening thoughts, Candyman 2.
Well, it's kind of funny because I, just like every movie, for some reason, I never see movies in order when they're part of a trilogy or anything like that. I think I was talking about this last time. And this was actually the very first Candyman movie I saw. And when I was a kid, I remember thinking it was like really scary and intense. I was like, yeah, this is deep. And then I watched it now and I'm like, oh man. I was like, this is like an Ashley Judd, a Morgan Freeman movie from the 90s. Like,
Yeah.
do you remember those? Like,
Oh
there were
yes.
like 3 of them. Like, and
Actually love
I
that
like
crap. I do.
I kind of do too. And
Yeah.
I used to watch those movies. But now I kind of feel like, you know, if I watched Double Jeopardy, I might not be as into it now as I was then. But that's kind of how this movie made me feel. I was like, man, I have this nostalgia, but the scariness of it, it's not like, there wasn't any like fear factor for me watching it, even though it's been decades since I've seen this movie. And I was
Right.
like, oh yeah, I've seen it. And even as like I was watching it, I was like, did I see it? I was like, oh yeah, I remember every part of this movie because it's really predictable. And I kind of feel there's some parts where like Kelly Rowan is just like acting. Huh?
Yes.
You know, like
Yeah.
and William O'Leary, same thing. Like, oh, I did it. I killed everybody. Father. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like that
totally.
type of thing, you know, but is it entertaining? Yeah. Have I seen worse? Oh yeah. So, you know, is it as educated and as intelligent of a movie as Candyman, the initial Candyman, or even the more recent the one that just came out? No, it's not. But it does still have some value to it, educationally as well as entertainingly. You know, like I said, it's kind of a fun movie to watch. But yeah, it's not one that I'm going to think about for weeks at a time and, make me think more about police brutality and all the other
Right.
themes that the others do. This one kind of makes me think more of like denial of heritage and ancestry,
Mm.
and whitewashing, basically. So that's as good as it really gets.
That's
Like,
those are some good themes though. That's pretty good. That's
yeah.
yeah.
Drew and I were talking about that stuff, so and I'm let y'all get your opening thoughts in, and we can keep on
I can't wait
going.
to discuss this one actually. That was a really good opener. Drew, what are your thoughts?
So, I like this one. I don't think it's as good or as artistic as the first one or the recent one. It's definitely much more of a conventional horror film. It's got a lot of jump scares. It's got a lot more graphic gore in it, more special effects. It's definitely again, more tropey, I guess is the word I would use.
Mm,
It falls back on a lot of more typical horror movie tropes. That being said, it is entertaining, and I love, the Southern Gothic vibe. I love seeing New Orleans like shot
mm,
like this. Like you guys are talking like you're amazed that Bill Camden, made this movie, but it's not like he's incompetent. And then whatever you think about the script, which does have problems, this is not an incompetently directed film. It's got
mm,
some nice looking stuff in here. New Orleans looks great in this movie,
mm.
and it's again very atmospheric. Tony Todd, of course, I could listen to him read a phone book as man.
Yes.
He's got
Yeah.
such a great character. So I don't actually think this is as bad as its reputation would have you believe. And if you think is bad, like I don't even want to do the third one on the show. Like, so imagine yourself how bad I think that one is. Like if I because this seems to be the week where I come to the defense of movies that aren't you can't normally defend, because I was also recorded an episode of the Borgo Pass podcast in which I made a case for Mark of the Vampire, which I know is another movie a lot of people hate. So I
That's
guess this,
unbelievable. I mean, I
yeah,
totally, but I like Mark of the Vampire, so
yeah.
I'm with you.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess this is my lot in this
So,
life.
what superhero did you liken yourself to, Drew?
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I only thing I did is they named Tony the Baron of Positivity, and I said that maybe I should be the Baron of Negativity.
Oh,
Mm,
that doesn't
I
work.
don't think that's true, and I say that
Mm-mm.
I
because you're being positive about this movie,
That is true.
which
I am
takes
taking
work.
I'm
That's
taking the Tony high road. It doesn't take work. I legitimately think that this is a fun movie, and it's got some stuff in it, like Jamie said. It
you know what? I'm
definitely
kind
has
of
some.
already coming around to your side on that, actually.
Yeah.
So we'll see what actual opening thoughts come out of my mouth when we get there. Julia, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I agree with what Jamie was saying. For the full first, I'd say 2/3, I found myself constantly being annoyed by the overacting and the over directing. I was just like, oh my gosh, why is everything so big and dramatic? It's just like I felt like I was watching ninth grade drama tournament.
Yeah.
But then like the last I think once they get into the story, you're talking about the heritage stuff, the fact that the whole history of why, how he was killed and what happened with the woman that he was in love with and the mirror and all that. I thought that was kind of interesting. I kind of wish there had been more of that and less of the girl of the week, that was the main character, main female character. I'm sorry, what is her name? You said her name a minute ago. And now
Annie,
I've
her
immediately
name's
forgot
Kelly
it.
Rowan.
Yeah, yeah, Kelly. Yeah, um, yeah. So
That's her
I
real
could
name.
have
I feel
done
like maybe we
right,
should be calling her
right.
Annie so she's not offended.
Yeah, I could have done with a lot less of the Annie character. And although I thought it was neat, yeah, again, I thought it was neat that she was a descendant and not a romantic interest. Like it wasn't about I desire you romantically. It's you're part of my family. Like basically you're my great great grandchild or whatever. So I thought that whole thing was very interesting, and I wish that there had been kind of more of that throughout the film. And honestly, that that it had just been less, just less of it, of the acting, of the directing, all that. So yeah, but Tony Todd's always just a gift. I mean, he's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. I have so many feelings about this, but if I think in terms of that first movie is a work of art. It's like something that you would if we were doing a lecture series at BAM, and we were going to show 4 movies and that was one of them, you'd be proud to make it one of the 4, and there'd be so much to talk about. This movie, uh, Jamie said it right. This is a 90s style thriller. It looks 90s. And if I can put my head in that space where this is just basically a trashy movie that happens to be following up the first movie, I actually can enjoy it like that. Because and what Julia said is exactly right. I feel like Bill Condon, if it's Bill Condon's fault, and it might very well be, everybody's like coming on super hard in all these early scenes. They're like over emoting, they're swinging their arms around, they're shouting their lines. It feels really strange. The energy is weird to me. um and so I don't know what to make of it other than it feels really exploitative, and if I get into that, then that's cool. Any moment that Tony Todd is on screen, we're in another universe. He's just he's amazing. I feel like, there's room. It makes me feel weird that I did. By the way, it until Joya just said the whole thing about how Candyman's goals are this family thing. That I completely forgot that. My brain just ignored that. So when we get to, I think our first topic, in fact, should be, let's just go right into this. What manner of monster is the Candyman, and what does he want? Because I think that will inform sort of what we think of, how we think about this and also the other one. So um, let me start with picking on Drew because he knows a lot about monsters. What is this guy? Is he is like I asked on Twitter, is he a rage ghost? Like what is Candyman as monsters go?
If you were to have to like tack him down, because in the mind of Clive Barker, when you hear Clive Barker talk about him, he's literally a incarnate urban legend, and he's powered by belief in him, and that's a really big thing to Barker. And I think that that's really present in both the original film and the new film. This movie, I think you almost have to think of him more like a revenant, which is
Mm,
sort of in between being, a ghost and, what we would think of as like a zombie.
mhm.
Because he is both physical and non-corporeal at the same time, which
Yeah,
they do sort of play at in the original movie. But I don't really think that, you say this a lot, Jason, that when these horror movie series go along, they have this sort of like solidifying
yeah.
the
Concretizing the myth
myth. And
was what it was. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that the first movie and the new movie, I are perfectly happy with Candyman being a vague thing. Like
Right.
they don't like they don't need the Van Helsing book of
Right.
rules on how to deal with Candyman. This movie, because it's interested in franchise building, is sort of like a more highfalutin equivalent of like one of the later Nightmare on Elm Street or the 13th sequels, where they're like, okay, suddenly we have to understand the rules of what this guy,
Yeah.
ticks on. And because of that, it's a lot more conventional. And in some ways, narratively, I think that's probably more satisfying to a certain segment of, Reddit is full of people who like to talk about various, fictional characters and what their feats and powers are, and they want to know that. Whereas I think a lot of times storytellers aren't as interested as that, because they
Yeah.
know, hand at the end of the day, it's kind of nebulous. And I definitely think that's how Clive Barker,
Yeah, for sure.
as the creator of this character, looks at it. Although he did do an he did get a story credit on this, so
Hmm.
he'd have had at least some say into what ended up being Candyman's backstory. I'm not enough of a scholar of this movie to really tell you that, but is taken is like an exercise in of itself. I think the backstory they give him is interesting, and I think the way he is played in this movie is much more interesting. A much more conventional monster. And again,
Mm.
I would call him a revenant. He's sort of in between being a ghost and an undead. It's
Which makes him a Dracula sort of character in a
yeah. Well,
sense.
and he's
You
that
know,
definitely was intended by design. Even in the first movie, is they wanted him to be a more soulful, poetic
Well, and
monster.
hypnotic. Like the whole thing
Yeah,
of Dracula is that he can women, or not women, but victims don't scream when he comes toward them. They kind of look like they want him to be there
or
because he's
swoony.
hypnotized
Yeah.
them. It's the same with the Candyman, with the women.
absolutely.
So let me ask.
And
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no.
Well,
I
my
think I'd
question
be
was,
repeating myself at this point.
I understood this movie to be in a sense, a remake in the concept of he's attracted to this woman and he wants to be with her, make her his immortal bride, Dracula style. And the titillating aspect of these movies is the scandalousness of interracial relationships and all that. And this movie takes away some of the art house eroticism of the first one, but there's still big opportunity there. And then, but Julia, you just said that that's not even there at all. Instead,
If
it's
it is, it shouldn't be because she's his great great grandchild.
Yeah, I
So
would say there's no, no, you definitely don't see that from the Candyman. He's not like sweet on his granddaughter or his great great
whereas
granddaughter.
he totally was with Helen. He was
yeah,
like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
murder all these people to get to Helen Lyle.
yeah,
You
right.
Yeah,
know,
I
and
think he just wants her to acknowledge, like he wants this family to acknowledge him as
Yeah,
the forefather of
yeah.
this family line, and he doesn't want to be denied anymore, which is interesting.
Mhm.
Like the politics of that is interesting. It's
yeah, it gives you a new theme that wasn't present
It
prior,
makes
which
me really
is
wish though that they would have picked some people with that were of like a mix of color basically. Like
right.
some that said where you were kind of not sure, like how like
well, I
there's certain
think that would
people.
have been
Mm.
obvious then. I mean,
and
this
No,
movie's
but I
Julia,
pretty
don't think
Super
obvious in
good
so.
other
point.
ways,
I
but
Julia,
don't think so
speaking from
because
personal
if
experience,
you
you
just have
can
a woman
be
who looks kind of exotic and then it turns out that it's because this girl looks like just a super 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 white girl,
yeah,
this Annie,
she
and I would
does.
have liked to have had somebody that looks a little bit more exotic, kind even
speaking
even
from
even even
personal experience, Julia, you can be mixed race and look
true.
completely white.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I just think it would have been a nice opportunity to have somebody of color
Well,
be
I would like to have somebody
cast.
of color in this part just because it becomes problematic to me how I get the theme, which is we need to acknowledge our past. We need to acknowledge that Candyman's part of our family. We need to, blah blah blah. So that theme is there, and that's a good theme. But on the other hand, up until all of that, what you have is this big problem of once again centering this Kelly Rowan as a white woman teaching in a black neighborhood and surrounded by suspicious black people who are suspicious of her and her discomfort in this universe. And there's all this weird racial politics going on
She's
in the
totally
movie.
a white savior trope. Like
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I kept saying that watching this movie. I'm like, oh, white savior.
Yeah,
mm,
and I mean, I don't know. That's become a lot more problematic recently, perhaps, than it would have played in the '90s. But
well, yeah,
nevertheless,
the 90s was the era of Dangerous Minds starring Michelle
Exactly.
Pfeiffer.
right?
Yeah, but it wasn't just her. It was like only white teachers were allowed at this school, at this black school.
Yeah, the in the movie, it's especially strange because this is an all black school apparently, and all white teachers, which is just an odd look. I don't know shit about New Orleans, okay, at least as far as like how their government or and teaching is run, but that's just it plays odd on the in the film. um yeah, but that is a new theme, so the whole notion of our lily white plantation family needs to acknowledge the parts of the family that we've turned our back on
Well,
and
and
punished.
I think
That's
that
good.
that's a real, that feels legitimate, especially when you take in the context of the setting, which, for this movie's faults, they do a very good job of making New Orleans a character the same way Chicago is a character in the original movie.
That's correct. Yes, and you were saying, Drew, that New Orleans looks great, and it does.
But
I
I
mean,
get
it really does.
and I get that you have to do this, but I get so
Uh,
tired of Mardi Gras being in every single New Orleans movie. It's always Mardi Gras if it's a New Orleans movie. That just drives me bonkers. I'm like, does New Orleans have no other time of year that's worth,
Works for a
but I
horror
get it.
film, though. It does work
It
for a horror
works for all
film.
the films that it's in. It just gets tiresome because like, can we come up with nothing original? I don't know.
Yeah, but Carnival, I mean, he's right. It does mean Feast of Flesh,
Yep.
and
yeah.
that is what the
No,
movie's
that's
named.
that's why.
Farewell to the flesh.
Farewell to the
yeah,
flesh, not Feast of the Flesh.
no, but you're right, and it
Close.
it plays with that quite well. Drew, you talked about Southern Gothic conventions, and I think I know a little of what you're talking about. But what does that mean?
Well, think of like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, that sort of, upperly mobile Southern family this definitely has. And I think that might be why you had some like camp acting with some questionable Southern accents that seem to disappear and reappear depending on the scene in this movie.
Well, I don't give a damn shot.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it reminded me of, actually. Come to think of it, I know what you're talking about, the boozy Veronica Cartwright sloshing her whiskey around and yelling at mirrors. But like, at the same time, well, and in this movie but I was thinking about The Big Easy and the television series The Big Easy, which was full of this. First of all, there's a look that 90s video and film has that like nothing's looked like that before and since. So it's just like you watch it and bam, you're there. And so this looks like a long and very bloody episode of The Big Easy, which is kind of fun. Thank you.
That's
I'm glad.
great.
You should check out
it's
that
funny
show
that
if you dig this stuff.
It's funny that you were saying about Veronica Cartwright, like swilling her whiskey. Which I didn't realize that was supposed to be her son-in-law, Paul.
Yes.
Right, we didn't
dear.
realize that either.
You guys didn't
poor
either?
job of
'Cause-
no, they did a poor job of introducing him as what he was.
Yeah, and I also think Paul wasn't doing such a good job of not looking at his mother like she was like a mountain lion in the forest, because he was like, damn, cougar. Like, I'm serious. He was like, oh, hey, mama, you want some whiskey in your coffee? Ha, chicory. You're like, chicory. Yeah, chicory doc here.
Sometimes it's like you
That's
can't tell
funny.
if these actors knew like anything else about the story other than the scene they were in at the
Totally.
moment.
It's like, well,
I'm
she's a
from
woman.
New Orleans.
Of all the people's Southern accents, I think that guy's was probably the worst. Like,
And it's
Yeah.
funny
For
because
sure.
he's born in DC. He's from DC.
Yeah, but
Ugh.
DC doesn't have a Southern accent at all. Yeah, no,
That's
that was
true.
funny.
Yeah,
he
he's on
sounded-
CSI. I didn't realize
That
he was
actor,
on...
William O'Leary, he's vaguely familiar to me. I apologize. I know I've seen him before.
He's
And I
one of
just-
those guys,
Who's
but-
everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But
Right.
like when I say Southern Gothic too, it's the whole here's plantations and there's old willow trees and things.
Oh,
are
yeah.
kind it's the rot of the Civil War and the rot of the sins of the South and that kind of thing. And it does lend itself, the South, I think, does kind of lend itself more to supernatural stories that better than the northern part of the country.
Let's hold our tongues there, sir.
No, but I can go. I know. Sure.
Yeah, we
Fair.
got the woods. We have Salem. We have the aliens. We've got the
We got Sleepy
monsters.
Hollow, yeah.
We have sleep. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. Big spooky willow trees and it
And
sounds to
animals
me
that can eat you in
We
the
have those
water.
too.
it sounds to me, Drew, like what you're saying is sort of how I will often say, look, this movie has microfiche in it, and so I like it. Period. End of story. I will watch any movie where the girl goes in there to the library and puts a pencil to her mouth and just like stares intently at at the microfiche.
That's
And
how it
so
works. You need the pencil. It's like a
right, you got to
cassette.
stare intently.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm with you. I can totally see going, look,
Well,
this
New
has all the
Orleans
elements I dig.
is one of my favorite cities in the country, and it has such a distinct look, but it also has a reputation as being kind of a magical
That's
place.
true. That's true.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a good, again, for this movie's faults, which I will acknowledge. Again, it's extremely tropey. Like I counted no less than 10 jump scares in this movie. And like I'm
What's
not
the radio's name? The radio guy's name?
Oh, the
Is it like
kingfish.
King Crawfish or
Oh, that's
Crawdad?
another wonderful trope.
Kingfish.
Just this after just like Radio
Wolfman Jack.
Radio Raheem, the guy in Do the Right Thing,
Oh
who's
yeah,
narrating
Radio
through the whole thing.
Raheem.
And I wonder if that was an influence here, because it's such a curious creative choice
It
to
reminded
have that.
Wolfman
me
Jack
of.
though too.
I was
He
gonna say
totally
it reminded
sounds
me
like
of The
Wolfman
Fog,
Jack.
like the Stephen King movie, or was that John Carpenter's?
John
Oh, you're
Carpenter.
right.
John
No, The
Carpenter.
Fog. Yeah, with Carpenter.
And
Who was that?
the
It was
chick.
Adrienne Barbeau,
Yeah,
right?
and Adrienne Barbeau. Yep. And she's
Yeah.
the whole time like, yeah, hey, New Englanders, like, don't worry about these foggy freaks coming to kill your land. Like, yeah, the whole time she's like telling everyone, and they're like, yeah, right. Like
I got to admit, I'm
this,
a sucker for that too. Yeah, you're right. As we list things, there's like, man, what's not to like? This has all the stuff. This
but
is
I
a
feel like
gumbo of tropes that
Well, I think
Kingfish.
I
That is, I don't know. That part actually really bothered me. I felt like it's played by a white dude. And I felt like it was, yeah. And I know that there's, people who sound that way in
well,
New
he's
Orleans,
supposed
and
to
it's not.
sound he's supposed to sound like Wolfman Jack, who was a white guy.
I just want
Is
to
he
point out
supposed to
there are
sound
whole
like
segments
Wolfman
of my
Jack?
family.
He sounds exactly like Wolfman Jack.
Yeah, to me
Hey,
too. That's who I
the
thought.
Yeah.
the Cajun corner of my family all sound like this.
Okay, all right. Because that's what I was like. This is. I don't know. When I found out he was a white guy, I was like, "This is making me feel uncomfortable."
Oh,
Like,
that had never even
yeah.
dawned on me. Hey, yeah, and there's plenty of times when I'm obtuse to like what I should be uncomfortable about. That's fair, but that never dawned on me. At the accent, I was like, it could be. You got to hear. I mean, there's so many. That New Orleans accent is just, it is peculiar to everybody who grows up there. So
And he's
yeah.
pretty over the top, but I think I can, as the Kingfish character, I can tolerate as being over the top because he's meant to be. He's a radio personality. It's a little bit more jarring when it's supposed to be like the policeman and
Yeah.
the mom. They're supposed to be like quote unquote normal
Yes.
people. And
Oh God, it's so like, it reminds me of that moment in The Office when everybody starts debating how to do a Southern Gothic accent, like and they start lecturing one another on the best way to try to sound like Katharine Hepburn in The Glass Menagerie. Like how exactly do you draw like that? And all of these guys have done that stuff. But it's so beautiful, right? The second story balconies and all that stuff.
The people. What
is
was
gorgeous.
he say? Let's do the doing. There's that one.
Do the do.
He's like doing the do to his wife as they like see people like going at it. It's the sole side boob of the film, because that's something I've noticed with all the Candyman films. No frontal nudity, lots of side boob.
This is admittedly backtracking to your question about Candyman, but one of the things I will say about the way this character has been treated, even though like there's been some subpar sequels. They have never resorted to making the character paroditic, which is what usually happens with monsters after a
What do
while.
you mean by that?
There's
I don't
never
think I know
been
that word.
like the Costello meet Candyman moment. There's never like never been Candyman in space. And I like Jason X. I think it's a fun movie, but it's after a while, a horror franchise goes on long enough, it becomes a
A parody of
point
itself.
to
I got it. I got
some of
it.
them
Okay.
some of them get to that really like Nightmare on Elm Street got to that really quick. Like by the third sequel, Freddy Krueger was starting to become essentially the Crypt Keeper.
Huh.
But like I think it is interesting that even this movie, who when you start to see that like they know they can't live up to the lofty heights of the first movie,
Yeah.
they're still reaching for something. Like they don't turn their central monster into a joke. Like the Candyman is treated with dignity and respect,
Huh.
and that's still true with the fourth movie that just came out.
I mean, certainly with the fourth movie because it's a reboot. I haven't seen Day of the Dead, so I don't know like what that's
Don't.
gonna be like.
Just
Well,
don't.
The new one?
Just don't.
I think we're gonna watch it.
No. Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead. Just don't. Just say you did.
But aren't we
Don't.
gonna
Like,
discuss that one next week? Isn't that like
we could, but we don't have to. I'm just.
Well,
I'm just
Why is
saying.
everybody so anti the new one? Is that?
I'm-
I mean, I'm like, I love
Not the
Tig
new
Notaro.
one. Day of the Dead.
Oh no, I like the new. I'm talking about no, Day of the Dead. This Candyman Day of the Dead is the next Candyman movie. I mean, it's the one that we'll
It's
discuss.
the third
after this.
one, and it's
Yes.
awful.
So Drew himself is going on the record saying not good. So
If
I don't
everybody
expect.
else wants to do it, I will do it.
I
No,
mean,
thank you.
knowing that it's bad, I'm kind of interested.
Knowing that it's bad, I'm gonna let you do it without me.
So Jason, I just wanted to point out that I was t-shirt shopping the other day, and I actually, of all things, came across a Vampire Hooker t-shirt. And I thought, who would have thunk it? And I thought about like mailing it to you, and then I just thought how upset Julia would have been at me. So I
No.
refrained.
Julia would probably be thrilled by a vampire.
Really?
I would steal the shirt.
Yeah.
I would steal the shirt.
Yeah.
Because they suck so much
It would
more than
become my
blood.
shirt.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness.
It would definitely
I mean-
become
I'm
my
gonna go to
shirt.
confession.
Like seriously, the thing that always pops into my head, it should be Embrace of the Vampire because we had such a good time talking about what a bad movie that was.
I wasn't there for that.
I
It does
know.
not. It
He
like
says resentfully.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I,
But
I don't know. I have like mixed feelings. It's like the most off
oh, I'm so
referenced
sorry.
episode, and yet I don't
And yet,
feel
right.
like I like the hours of my life that I would have spent watching.
Why
that
don't you
movie.
watch it and then record some stuff and then we'll just splice it in?
This is I understand. It's like being Chekhov and going, oh, I just remembered that I wasn't in the space seed when Khan showed up, and so but I don't even know what. That's probably the second nerdiest thing that I've said tonight, and
Well, apparently you compared yourself to Batman. That's pretty nerdy.
yeah, I was making a particular point.
Wow.
But no, my point
And
is,
to the Dark Knight.
we talk about how bad Embrace the Vampire was, but I often think of films like Split Second, which is a movie with Rutger Hauer, where he's chasing a semi-psychic serial killer thingamabob through a flooded London, and it's not a good movie. But I love how bad that bad movie is. I mean I love just how disjointed and all over the place and just going for it that film is. And somehow, I have to put myself in that mindset where this thing is a party. We're going to the movie, we're going to watch it, and we're going to have some fun. And I don't believe in yelling at the screen. I'm not that kind of a hooligan, but I do want to like just enjoy a crazy movie sometimes. So I'm fine if Day of the Dead is not that good. This movie is taking a hard left turn from a movie that was literally like Wings of Desire but horror. It was a good film, and this is a sequel that doesn't go for that.
To me, this a lot about this movie, like it's a 1-star, and by that I mean Farewell to the Flesh.
Right.
A lot of people talk about this movie like it's a 1-star movie, and to me, this is more like a 2.5 to 3-star movie. Like it's
Mm.
not like, whereas like the first movie, that's your like 5-star, 2
Right.
thumbs up, really artsy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
highfalutin. This is Son of like the first one is Bride of Frankenstein. This is Son of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein still has some stuff I like.
Fair.
Son of
Yeah. No,
Frankenstein has
that's
Igor, and or this is a weird echo of our discussion about Ghostbusters 2. I feel like, because I remember
mm.
I had to like go on the defense on why I like that movie.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and I feel myself, bouncing back and forth between which Jason is going to show up for the movie, the one who only wants to watch, like, like I said, Wings of Desire, but with horror, and the one who's like down for a supernatural slasher film that's slightly better than it has to be. I still stand by everything I said about how the beginning of this film,
I think
the
that's
actors are
fair.
all over the place.
I think
Oh,
all
yeah.
the criticisms are fair criticisms, but think you have to contextualize it that this movie still, compared to a lot of other horror films, it still has a lot more
Oh God, yes.
stuff to make you think, and it's still got that motherfucking Philip Glass score. If
Yeah.
nothing else.
Yes, they're using Helen's theme, which Jamie did the wonderful piano rendition of that
Oh,
was played in our
thanks.
last episode. So if the listener hasn't listened to that yet, gotta check that out. It was super
Why would
awesome.
Why would they start out with one though? God help them.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I like
But,
this movie.
so the other thing I was thinking about, it was interesting that they had the callback in this film with that guy Philip Purcell. He's played by Irish actor Michael Culkin as just the most
Ugh,
loathsome,
he is loathsome.
odious walking lizard man, poppin' eye, stupid. He's got
But
his
you know
stupid
what?
ponytail.
R.I.P. character, because he
Yeah.
dies a gruesome death.
Yes, it is unfortunate, but he's a dumbass. I mean,
Well, yeah,
his
he
whole I'm gonna
literally
say
asked
And
for
the only
Candyman.
repeat
He
character from
literally
the
asked
first
for it.
film,
That's
besides
true.
Tony Todd.
Yeah.
He's the only one to come back. It is so
But that's
funny.
also like, when I compare this movie to like a more conventional horror film, that is a very early 80s slasher movie trope of like
Oh yeah,
bringing back like a character that survived the previous movie just to kill them. Like, because
yeah,
they did that.
that's
They
true.
did that in the Friday the 13th films. They did that in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Hell, they in one of the Halloweens they killed Jamie Lee Curtis off screen just to bring her back.
Oh my
Decades
goodness,
later.
so right.
But
Oh my goodness, yeah.
so it's
They actually killed her numerous times.
that's
Honestly,
true.
they
Like
killed her.
the many deaths of Laurie Strode.
Yeah, you have to just assume basically that the movie itself is just unreliable because she dies a lot and just keeps coming
She
back.
dies a lot.
Yes.
Jeez.
I
Chick needs a
feel
habit.
I feel like that killing this guy is like the whole opening scene with him like giving his lecture and telling you the lore and sort of repeating
Yes.
the first movie. I think all that stuff is fun, and he's a character that you kind of wanted to
Yes.
get his comeuppance in the first film, and he just sort of disappears. Like, you never see him again.
True. That's true.
And he's so
And how
smart.
funny that they would think of bringing him back. Like the writer sits down, the writers in this case sit down. They go, what are we gonna do? How do we connect? Oh, how about the douchebag from the dinner? Like, let's have him do a
Yeah.
slideshow. And I'm a sucker for slideshows. Just like anything.
Well, and then look into his book, his reflective book, and say Candyman 5 times.
I
Yes.
wonder how many people the book killed, because so many people would read that book and then look at it and just do that. Like,
Right?
Yeah.
he probably is responsible for a lot of people's. Although
So
I
funny.
find it
That's-
odd that he is an expert on Candyman, and yet he has never actually done the deed until that one
Right.
moment.
Yeah, you're right. That
I
makes
sort of think in reality Candyman is a little bit more selective. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't maybe just appear for just
You don't think he
anybody.
kills like all the 12-year-olds who do it at the slumber
No,
party?
No, I
don't
think he gets right. I'm with Drew. He
Just one
probably
or two
he picks and
in
chooses.
every
Yeah.
other zip code. Like
Right.
just
Well,
once,
he has to keep the legend
bank
going.
holidays.
He has to keep
Yeah.
the legend going, so he has to bump off like somebody every so often. And this guy kind of had it. He had it coming. Like,
Well, and it's interesting that this movie sets up some extra continuity that it's going to cram in, where our main character Annie, her father died years ago when he summoned Candyman. We later find out because of this familial connection. I want to take a moment, in fact, to talk about the origin story. That's the thing that Julia said that she most reacted to. They actually reenact the origin story that gets told in the first movie, and that's wild. I mean, it's wild that they just put it on the screen. It's shocking. It is definitely, it's definitely disturbing. It's definitely violent.
It's probably I feel like it was the most gruesome part of the whole
It's
movie.
really, it's hard to
For sure.
watch. It's
Yeah, I
racially
didn't.
motivated violence. It's ugly. I mean, and I don't know how to feel about it. In other words, I wish that we had a person of color in our cast on this show who could say it's exploitative, I object to it, or no, it's fine, it's a horror movie. I don't know how to feel about it.
Well,
But it
I
is
think.
shocking.
I think
Well,
in
I
general bad.
I
Right.
think that I feel like because they're showing like the horrific treatment of a black person by a bunch of white people, I don't know that they would say that was exploitative. I think it would say that was, a good message to remember, like of how horribly white people have treated black people throughout the centuries. I think it makes the character of Candyman more sympathetic character. Doesn't mean he doesn't need to be like at one point Jason said something about how, well, now that we know like what happened, do we want him dead? I'm like, well, he needs to be, he can't, just because you know that a serial killer had a horrible childhood doesn't mean he should be allowed to be continued to be a
Right.
serial killer. You still have to stop him, but at least you have some sympathy for him.
It's worth
But-
asking because it means that he's had all this trauma and now he's become a crazy rage ghost who kills people all the time. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jamie. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I also like the fact that that's the scene where you actually find out why he is called the Candyman. Because, in the
Yeah.
first one, I just was like, oh, yeah, like Candyman, like people who put razors in candy. And like,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I thought. And it's like, say, she does cut her finger on like a Jolly Rancher or something, has a straight edge in there. But,
Right.
like,
It's
just like, oh, I'm not gonna have hepatitis. Like, oh, it's fine. Like, that's it.
right.
It's the last of Helen's worries.
Everything's so grody. Yeah, and I didn't I was with everything here as far as how disturbing it was. I thought that was not necessary. The whole let's go ahead and give him the name Candyman. Like I was not actually on the edge of my seat wondering if they would
well,
explain
that is
why he
actually
was called Candyman.
in the Forbidden. That is actually why the honey is actually why he's called
Really?
Candyman. Yeah, no, that's it. Why do you think he's
Unbelievable.
got bees buzzing around, Jason?
Right.
Because it's awesome. I mean, the thing is,
Well,
I
well,
just
it is
didn't
You knew
need.
that
No
the
argument
honey.
there.
I didn't need a woman to say, "Ah, Candyman," like so that we in the audience will
Yeah.
go, "Oh, I've been wondering who would get to bestow him with this." I just, for me, it was just. I'm gonna regret saying this the
I'm
moment it comes out of my mouth. It was too
Actually,
on the nose. It was,
actually, Jason, I feel like you just made that moment better for me because while you're saying like, oh, you're like, I didn't need this white woman to be saying, oh, Candyman, as she's like
yes,
gets flicked with a honeycomb that's
right.
breaking as they smear it very erotically over Tony Todd. They were like, sorry, Tony, we're enjoying this a little too much. Can you say something while we're rubbing honey on your chest?
I
Can
think
you
you're projecting
sing
a
a
little
little
bit,
bit?
Jamie.
Yeah, no, maybe. but the part that I'm talking about is the fact that you were like, I don't need that white woman. That whole part, like that idea is then transferred to like the rest of the film. When you think about it, like when at least maybe this is my take on it as like someone who does organize a feminist organization. So but I think of that woman as being like representative of all of the women who haven't or didn't up to that point stop the men from
Mm,
doing horrible things like that, because they were also in on it,
mm,
even if they weren't necessarily the ones sawing his hand off and breaking the honeycomb. They were still as amused and still like, like
yeah.
what, how horrible he is, and like, oh wretched, this is all just a joke as we murder this man. And
You're
for
right that it is hard to watch, right? I mean, that
well,
it is
right, but I mean,
disturbing.
it's the fact that at least that made me just think about how the cover up of
Mm,
uh Octavia, um Veronica Cartwright's character, how she was like, I try to protect you, and it's
yes.
like, so she knew about it. So it's like, how many other people knew about it, but they told them, their children, in secret, to for Octavia to have known? Or is it just the fact that her husband knew? And it's like, oh wait a minute, why is your husband like researching this stuff and you're not interested, like, oh, in who great grandma was, and I just kept thinking about, when you said that, how it's that narrative that, like, the white woman who is like always seen as the white savior, and oh, we're so great. But we talk so much about voting and like voter suppression in the last uh episode, and
Mm,
you got to think if it's like women, I was saying last time that women were the last ones to get the right to vote technically, but
yeah.
white women were not it was white men, black men, then white women.
Mm,
And indigenous women didn't even get the right to vote until like what, the late 70s, I think. And I don't know, there's this whole aspect of this like like domination of women for as a mean for intersectionality, to kind of
mm.
show that passageway, but at the same point still making it very like us, and maybe not as solid of a point it should have made, because it took you saying that for me to get it.
No, I
And
didn't
I'm
think about that at
always
all.
looking, yeah,
You're
it took
precisely right.
some,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and it took a white man to get me to think that way. No, just kidding, Jason. But no, I mean, like,
I'm
literally,
happy to be of
it's
service.
it's yes, any well, you're my go-to.
But
My
it's
go-to white dude.
the well, I'm so glad. Maybe this is actually one of the enjoyable things about this movie, is how sort of all over the place it is, with serious things to think about, and also that it's just a bit on its face, a fairly goofy slasher, with
Well,
some
it's
with
so over the top with the acting. The overacting is
yeah,
what takes away from everything else, because it's
which
still,
was not the
well,
case in the previous film,
no,
and again with Bill Condon is not the case with Gods and Monsters,
no.
and so I don't know what's going on, and it it just seems to be his choice for
Maybe
this.
he was trying to do a James Well thing, like knowing
Mm.
his preoccupation with Universal. Or but I mean,
Yeah,
I
maybe.
that could be me reaching too. But
But the idea that sometimes you go ahead and make something melodrama, you go ahead and get rid of the subtleties of it. I got to admit, I really like the finale where we're in like full on, magic land, where, involving, literally destroying a magic mirror. I mean, that's awesome. Once we're
and
finally
and
like,
like
oh,
and
there's a,
like and
hmm,
like epic, what do you call it, torrential flooding,
right, there's flooding, and
yeah.
there's a hellscape, and there's a magic MacGuffin that the heroine has to
I
bust.
want I want to know though that they're in the old slave quarters and suddenly there's all these like desiccated skeletons
Yeah.
there. He knew that this family were still living there. Are we not to believe they never removed corpses
I
from
don't know
their
what the hell was
backyard?
going on with
Yeah, I
that.
don't know
I
what the
could
deal with
make
that.
up some
I
bullshit, but
think,
I
well,
have no idea. Yeah.
I would, you say that, but that happens. Like, people don't, like, you don't people don't get buried very deeply, if at all,
Mm,
because New Orleans does flood. So if your family had enough money to put you into their little, I forget what they're called, like little crematorium
The
cemeteries.
They're like crypts,
above
yeah.
ground.
Yeah, exactly, the crypts. But they literally do turn you into dust. I mean, you are cremated essentially when you are in one of those. And there's
by the way,
multiple
Daniel
people.
Robitaille got one. How do you like that? He got a
Yeah.
public
Next
execution,
to
but also
the he
a
got
crypt
his
next to his lover.
yeah, his tomb was next to his girlfriend or his whatever she was.
Which
So
that I was still kind of like,
I didn't believe that.
yeah, I was like, how
yeah.
is that possible?
No way.
They said they saw her disappear, like, and no one ever really heard from her again, is what they had said in Chicago. But now, like, you find out, like, oh, Daniel Robitaille was born in New Orleans, and he was born in this house, and he was like, really? Because okay, like, I thought he was like from wealthy, like,
it's so
black,
funny when you're
like,
saying
stock,
this
like
now.
the
I'm just loving it. I'm loving how nutso this is, and the fact that chances are in the next movie it's all going to be changed anyway.
oh yeah.
Well,
That's
I mean,
actually
that goes back to the nature of urban legends.
But
Right.
Like,
weren't his
Right.
ashes supposed to be sprinkled over Cabrini? Isn't that the thing?
I don't
Like his
remember.
Candyman's ashes were sprinkled over Cabrini, so that's why he haunted Cabrini. That's what Drew said.
I mean, I think that Tony Todd appears to be this demon that's
I keep saying
that's
Tony Todd, not Tony Todd. He's very much alive and kicking.
well, right. It's funny because our children constantly mock us for calling movie characters by the actors' names. It's just a weird thing I do. But yes, Daniel Robitaille appears to be a demon who shows up all over the country, and probably has many origin stories. That's the hilarious thing is it's possible that there's many of him.
Well, it's gotta be
obviously,
because
this
they break his soul in
Yeah.
this one. They're like,
the
oh,
magic mirror thing didn't take. 'Cause
Right.
there's 2 more movies after
Uh-oh.
this.
Hang on, I've got fire alarm. I'll be right back. It's my candle.
No,
Hang on.
don't lie. It's the bat phone. Yes,
Commissioner
Commissioner.
Gordon.
And now I get probably a phone call that goes, "Hey, do you need the fire department to come out?"
I'm going to go make sure that the alarm upstairs didn't go off. So talk amongst yourselves. We might decide to keep this in just as a bonus for anybody
especially
who
since apparently it's actually your bat signal.
anybody who's been listening this long into the show gets the extra bonus of hearing me go deal
This
with
is
with a smoke.
What's funny, and I don't know what they said to Jason, but when I recorded that Borgo Pass episode, like we're like, that y'all were the reason why we started doing this.
Yeah, they said that to Jason too. Yeah,
And I
thought
it's
that was
like
really
weird.
sweet.
It is, but it's also weird for me to think that there's like a quote unquote generation of
That's what I
horror
said. I
movies.
go, "Hey, you're a daddy again."
It's like, yeah, we have two children
Yeah.
together, Julia. You were there.
Monster movie happy
Yes,
hour
for
says
many
that too.
hours of labor, I was there.
This was a very
Be sure
long
to tell
labor.
Jason now.
It's a 10-year labor for this.
Yes.
Yep,
10-year labor.
for this show, the
Aw.
podcast.
I've returned. What did I miss?
We're talking
were-
about
10
how
years of labor.
how it's been 10 years of labor of becoming the parent of the podcast. No, like,
Well, 'cause
'cause
when
Back to the spankings.
yeah, there you go. Drew
when-
was saying
when-
that they said the same thing to him that they said to you about how the Borgo Pass guys see us as like the generation before them, basically.
It's funny.
Well,
Well-
Monster movie happy hour said that too, and it's like strange for me to think about that we have influenced
Some
group.
really excellent shows, to say the
Yeah.
least.
I
mean, so, those are
sometimes
two
I-
great
Shout out
shows.
to Monster Movie Happy Hour.
Yeah.
and I felt very humbled to be, because like I think I know my stuff about classic horror, but those two guys they're like on
Borgo
a
Pass,
whole-
man, they know their horror. Like it is humbling and unbelievable. Yeah,
yeah.
they know it really well, and it's they could teach us a thing or two. By the way, the thing that set off the smoke alarm, I have this candle. Our younger child got me a candle called Pirate Life, and if you light it, and it creates a smell like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. In other words, if you have a special fondness for the weird dank smell of
Mm,
the
but it's
of
good. It's a
the
good smell. I like it.
of the yeah. I
Of the
mean,
Disney World,
of the
the
Disneyland Pirates of
the
the
ride.
Caribbean
Right.
ride. Yeah, there's a weird. You know what the water smells like, right? It
Yeah,
has, and
right.
it's not
But
awful, but
no,
it's
it's
Kind of
nice
weird.
smell.
chloriney. It's like
Yes,
chloriney.
and, and
Well, the
this candle
candle's very
smells like that.
pleasant. I like the smell of the candle.
Yeah, I like. But anyway, sometimes if I if I burn it long enough, the smoke alarm just goes off. It's like, nope, too much. So yes. All right.
You sure you weren't just burning a candle as a shrine to the Candyman? Because apparently
Right.
everyone loves to light candles for this guy.
Boy, I
Which
love. Yeah. So the
Yeah,
old.
where do these homeless guys get all these candles? That's what I want to know.
I
Well,
think
and
it's supposed to be the dad. Like the dad was like going a little like,
no, but he's long dead at
OCD.
this point. I mean, she goes back to the plantation house. And by the way, remember, we now, in the time since this movie has come out, we now live in a universe where plantation houses have become a much less cool thing to hang out in. Uh, but they got this plantation house. There's all these guys who have moved into it, these unhoused people who are living in this house. And for some reason, they've still got a shrine going where they've got like 30 candles burning all the time in this tiny little wooden room. And I'm like, wow, so that's a hell of a fire hazard. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know, and it also takes a lot of work. I mean, they're gonna have to be constantly going in and going, oh hey Frank, one of the candles went out, but
Let's get some more from the stash of candles that we keep.
right. Somebody
Yeah.
go to the dollar store and get us another 20 candles.
Get us another 20 tea lights.
Yes.
They're spending so much on tea lights.
I know. This is why they're unhoused. And
Feeding
that's
them
why
out
they
of
have to
house
They're
and
stay.
not even
home.
tea lights. They're like these huge,
I know.
Yeah, they're nice.
significant
They're nice
sized
candles.
candles.
So okay, we should get our final
Real
thoughts
beeswax.
on this. Oh,
Oh.
those are nice. Yeah. Do you remember the candle stores? Like the what was it called? Like Wicks and Sticks? That was it.
Wicks and sticks. Yeah.
Does that
Actually,
still
one of
exist?
I don't think so, but one of my best friends, Dana Winston, works at Candlestock in Woodstock. It is a
Mm.
place of candles. I'll have to tell her I
Oh,
gave a shout out.
that sounds very nice.
Yeah.
Wicks and Sticks. I used to get
But they have everything.
every gift I would get Julia when we were teenagers, I would get her from Wicks and Sticks because I thought that was just the pinnacle of
Oh.
classiness to go
They
to
do
Wicks
have
and
something
Sticks.
called Yankee Candle that still exists.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's why she
But
has
Yankee
like
Candle
10
is no Wicks and Sticks, Julia.
for sure.
Wicks and Sticks had like lots of incense.
No, they had incense
The
and they had candles.
pictures
But the
and
thing that I got for Julia, she literally has like 10 little French Pierrot dolls. Because I would go to Wicks and Sticks and I'd get her those weird little ceramic dolls, the little clown dolls.
little creepy ones. Yeah.
Someday somebody is going to get mad at us and like some sort of spell, and then all those little ceramic clown dolls are going to come to life.
Now I have to move the damn dolls out of my bedroom. Thanks
That
a
is
lot.
my nightmare. It is so scary.
Yeah, I'm gonna set the dolls up behind your desk now, along with your creepy Charlie McCarthy doll.
Oh.
So, what a great thought, eh? I
Speaking
mean
of
that we
creepy
should use that.
guys, though, I'm like back to the film.
Yes.
I was thinking, the Chester, the bartender guy, when Annie's like, oh, she's like, I'm looking for I don't know, was it the Commodore or something? She says something like his code name. He's like, getting his hand all licked on by.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
so
that's
weird.
that
Creepy
character's
snow guy.
that
Yeah.
character's name was he was the snow cone guy. His name was Honore Thibodeau. That actor's name is Matt Clark, and he's really good. I mean, he's really, really great. But God, what a sleazeball he
Yeah.
seems to be. Yeah.
He
And-
gets probably the
God, the worst.
death
Yeah.
in this entire franchise, though, because he
Mhm.
gets the hook, he gets the bees, and then he gets smashed through a wall.
Yes.
Ouch.
Like face first through
Yeah.
like a
Yes.
window.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally true. Yeah, he's cool, and I shouldn't kink shame. If he wants somebody to lick honey off his arm, I guess that's.
I don't think it was even honey. Like it was snow cone.
Oh no, it's
like,
snow cone juice.
Yeah.
Still no shame. Do what you
cherry,
want.
because that lives like
Yes.
she's, you know, but
You know what? You
she
live
says
like
that.
Chuck Berry said, you live how you want to live.
But
That's fine.
my thought on this was the thing that oddly enough grossed me out, and I think it's like a reoccurring theme in this movie is the stuff getting into people's mouths. Like
Mm,
their first, it's when Paul gets killed. I say first, I don't know what the like order of things is.
yeah.
When Paul gets killed and the blood goes through him and it sprays out his front and like gets her in the mouth, and she's got like this big blob of blood
Oh,
running
right.
down
That's
her
right.
nose and
Yeah.
chin.
So
And
gross.
then the lady who that gave Candyman the name, was like breaking the honey, like, and it flicks in her like mouth, like she's like,
Yes.
oh, it's like flecking on her face. And then the thing
You're
that really
right.
like, but
That's
the
totally right.
cherry, yeah, but what bothered me too is like, I'm allergic to cherries, so I cannot enjoy a cherry snowball or snow cone or whatever the hell they call it. I think it's snowballs in New Orleans.
Is that so?
And
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, New Orleans snowball.
yeah,
Mm,
we used to call them snow cones back homes in New York.
yeah.
So, but why would you eat any? I couldn't eat anything red for a long time after that. Like, I can't imagine being like, oh, the very next day, yes, sir, I would love a cherry snow cone. Let me stick my nose and my face into this redness so I can reenact the bloody look of my face last night when my husband was brutally murdered by the Candyman. You know,
Yes. Oh my goodness.
and
Yeah.
there's also when it grossed me out too, like when like the house collapses and they like, or the stairs fall, and it's like during the floods and she's in the water and she's like comes out and you're like, oh, the water looks so nasty. And it is
Yes.
like the first thing they do is like they show her like basically deep throating this like nasty muddy water, and you're like,
Ugh.
oh, like that made me want to vomit. Like
Well,
that
and this is
really
something that
like,
where my
oh.
heart really does go out to Kelly Rowan, any of these actors, because liquids on a stage tend to be really crappy, and this is where you get paid the big bucks, is you're in this stupid pool and there's just all this grody water around, and there's not much, I presume, that you can do to protect yourself, from this. I mean, it's not, it may not be actual flood water, but ugh, yeah, no,
But
absolutely.
what are they putting in it to make it look like that? Like
Right.
Nestle's Quick?
Right.
Is it
I
you?
have no idea. It's a
Like,
cool
ooh.
set, by the way. This weird underground tunnel thing, with the mud everywhere and the gnarly tree roots and skeletons. I mean, so it's kind of it, as with everything else in this movie, it's calling back to other stuff, right? So there's all this poltergeist stuff
And
here.
while she started as the savior, the kids ending up saving her.
Wow.
Did
I
you
had I had not even thought of that. That is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
This movie's so much deeper than you gave it credit for. How'd
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. I'll have to watch it again. Maybe if,
I'm
yeah.
not going that far. I'm not saying like it'll probably be like a decade.
I can't wait
before I
until
watch
next
this movie
week
again.
for me to call back on this movie unironically and go, the last movie that had some, as if this were the pinnacle. So, okay, let's get our final thoughts. Oh, well, we should mention that it jumps forward in time a little bit, and we meet her baby because she's having a baby. And she says, and she just flips through the pictures and tells her new daughter about Caroline is the daughter, and she tells her new daughter
My
about
God.
Daniel Robitaille, who was a member of their family, and that's nice.
She goes, and someday I'll tell you more about him. And then she leaves. And for whatever reason, she has put a mirror in this kid's little mobile above her
Mobile, yeah.
bed. And the kid goes, as when the mom leaves, the kid looks in the mirror and goes, Candyman, Candyman,
Yeah.
Candyman. And then she like puts her mouth, the mom walks back in and puts her hand over the kid's mouth before she can say the fifth one. I'm like, why did you give her a mirror? Why does
And
she
how'd
know
you
this?
teach her about Candyman? I
She
mean, like, how
obviously
did that
didn't teach her.
happen?
Somebody else
Yeah,
taught her.
and right, and
Like
does this
that
happen
kid's
every night? Is the kid basically just yanking her chain all the time? Like, hey, look,
yeah.
Hey, Mom, I'm doing it again. Just give me yeah. Because
Yeah,
I've
it's
had
true.
kids and they will do crap like that. Like,
Yeah.
just you watch.
The
Yes.
second you say something horrible or a
Right.
swear word and they realize that you didn't want them to hear it, and it's like, oh, and they're like, oh,
I
I don't
know what I'm
know
gonna be doing
now.
now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You
one of my
know,
friends, one time she goes to her kid, she's like, "If I hear one more peep out of you," and the kid goes, "Peep," because you just have to. You have to. Like,
Yeah.
you have to.
Oh,
Yep.
man.
but it
Okay.
is also another one of the examples of the tropiness of this is that
Yes.
they had to end on something. I mean, I guess you could argue that the first one ends on something like that as well, to have Helen
Mm.
Ghost, but
Wait, they have.
That's right. That's right. The
Yeah.
Revenant,
but
whatever she was called.
this feels a
Uh-uh.
little bit more like, okay,
Happy
there's
ending.
going to be a sequel, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's not really gone, folks. And
But
Yeah.
here's a happy ending for now. Like that's
Right.
what this is. Like, like you're a bad mom, like giving your daughter pieces of glass, so
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
toy over
pointy
her head.
mirrors. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's all of that. Like, there's I don't know.
And my kid would have there would be no mirrors anywhere in the house. My
Yeah.
kid would have no mirrors.
Oh man, this
Yeah.
is
although in theory she's quote unquote off the hook because she acknowledged her ties to him, so maybe he wouldn't go after them anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
Although that isn't really the case because that's what the third movie's about.
oh, he goes after them again,
I
Yeah.
or
can't
is there
wait
just more
to
people?
I
I
can't
haven't
wait
seen
Goes
to
the
after
third
encounter
he
movie.
that.
goes after the daughter. He
The
goes
thing
after
is,
the
it's not
daughter.
as once it's about family, it's not as fun in a sense because if it could be just any random person who just says stuff and Candyman comes to kill them, that's way scarier than a very, this time it's personal. If this time it's personal, it's not as interesting to me, because, oh, well, now I'm not worried because the shark is apparently only going after that family. And so, yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, it
Collateral
also
damage.
seems they're ripping off Halloween, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not completely certain it was a good idea for Halloween either. Let's get our final thoughts though. Jamie, we started with you, and we will
Mhm.
start with you again. We've talked a lot about Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh. I don't know if we've done it justice. I don't know if we've done it in injustice. But what are your final thoughts?
Drew had said earlier that this was like a solid 2.5, 3-star movie out of 5. I would agree with that. It reminds me of something you'd watch on a rainy Saturday afternoon.
Mm,
It's nothing fantastic. Are you in for like some entertainment that will keep you occupied while you clean? Maybe. Sure. It's not if you're into jump scares, that's gonna help a lot. But if you're not, ooh, this movie has some other charms, but is still, I don't know. I'm not really sure if we're like, I'm trying, like, because I love Candyman. Like, of all like horror monsters, like, he is one of my favorites, and that's a very short list. And I think I want to like the whole series. And
mm.
this movie, like I said, I feel like it's like an Ashley Judd movie from back then. Like, it's like, oh, Ashley Judd wasn't available for this movie. And I don't know, it misses the mark, but it does have its good points. So, like I said, it's not something I'd rush out and be like, I gotta watch this right now. But if I had nothing else to watch and this was on, but oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I actually really like something you said also about
Cleaning.
how
Yeah.
well, no, but this is kind of cementing him as a reliable horror figure, in a sense. It's making him like Freddy. He's a character who's
Yeah.
gonna be in a series, even though the series doesn't turn out to be as long as we might hope. But yeah. Drew, what are your thoughts?
My opening thoughts are kind of the same as my starting thoughts. This has a visual New Orleans that I legitimately love. Like I like spending time in this horror version of New Orleans. So there's that. And I don't think it's as good as the first movie, but I think it's a solidly entertaining film. It and up until the new one came out, it was definitely the best movie in a fairly small franchise, admittedly. But
Mm.
I enjoy this movie. It's one that I revisited, here and there over the years. Like the first one is a classic. This one is I will stick with my my estimation. This one is the Son of Frankenstein of the series. Like
Mm.
it's not as good as what came before, but it's still got a lot of stuff I like.
Thank you. Julia, what about you?
Well, we didn't actually talk much about the initial plot of this movie, which was that her brother was being basically accused of having killed. So their dad somehow was dead, and then the brother was being accused of killing the dad and also killing other people. So basically, it's this idea that if Candyman doesn't exist, then somebody's got to be committing all these murders. And now it looks like maybe it's the brother. Oh, wait, no, maybe it's her. Maybe she's doing it, Annie, because the brother is like in jail, but her husband gets killed and all these things. So it's like, who's really doing it? And fortunately, cop lady sees a video of somebody getting killed in the room that the brother's in at the jail by an invisible force, and so she's like, oh, "Okay, well, since I saw the video, nobody else has seen the video, and she's not showing it to anybody. Since I saw the video, I'm gonna go ahead and let you get a head start." Like, but there's all this crap that happens in that first half of the movie where it's like this weird stuff like are these two people going to get blamed for all these murders? And I actually think it would have been more interesting for that to also all that could have been the whole plot of just like she's on trial for these murders, because I've seen that movie before in other forms where the person is on trial for the murders that were actually done supernaturally, and then you have to prove that they were done supernaturally, which is really hard to do because of course,
Mm-hmm.
who wants to believe that? So that whole kind of bit was kind of interesting, but they didn't really take it. I don't know. I feel like they didn't handle it well. Like they
Well,
could
in
have done
theory,
more with
that's
it.
the plot of the first movie. And the reason they don't handle it all that well in this movie is it's just so this is a tautology, I'm sorry, because it's so poorly handled, because the directing is so weird and the acting is so crazy
Yeah.
and
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying. If they'd done something, I don't know, but just the idea, you're right that that it would not be original because it does happen in the first movie and in other films as well, where you're like dealing with these who's if and I actually think that's interesting every time is
Hmm.
if you don't believe in the supernatural monster, then a person is doing this or people. Who is it, and how are you going to prove that it's not them?
Right.
So that whole thing, I don't know. We kind of I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that a little bit
Excellent
because
point.
that's not we didn't really get into it. The other thing was that Annie's husband destroys his own bar for no reason, which I totally didn't get that. Because the guy, the nerdy professor guy, is in there,
Oh
and
yeah.
he just like they get kind of into a fight, but then the bartender husband of Annie like grabs him, like slides him along the bar, so he breaks all this glass, he breaks all these alcohol bottles, and then he throws him through a glass window.
His
I'm
own
like, this
window.
is your bar, like why are you doing
Yeah.
this? Anyway, so that poor guy, even though I didn't like him, I felt like that was a little bit of overkill for dealing with his issues. So I don't know. So there was a few things there that I just thought merit mentioning. But yeah, I don't love it. I hated it at first, and then I stopped hating it at the end. But I don't love it.
Well
So
said.
anyway, so we'll see what happens if we end up watching the next one.
I have I think I've said completely enough, and I appreciate all of your thoughts on this. I will have more to say when we come back next week, assuming we do for Day of the Dead. We'll take
It's
we'll take a
it
straw
kind of
poll.
I kind of feel like that we're doing it. This seems to be
I feel
the
like we should. I mean,
I
because
Yeah, I kind
I
of
hope
I
it's the worst film I've ever seen. But to be
it's
honest
not
with
gonna
you,
be that bad. It's not gonna be that bad, but
I
it's
mean,
pretty bad.
honestly, if it's not as bad as Vampire Hookers, I'm gonna just assume that it's a pretty good sequel, a pretty good third film in a series. So
I just think
I'm
it's Drew doesn't like LA. Don't listen to him, Jason.
all
I
right
haven't
then.
seen the movie either, but Drew doesn't
Nope.
tend to
I
like
I,
anything
I don't
in
dislike.
LA.
I'm ready for it.
That
I'm
isn't
I'm
true.
I'm here for it. And okay. All right. Julia, do they do Dia de los Muertos in Nicaragua? Is that strictly
I think it's just Mexico.
okay? So no angle there. All right, no problem. Let's get our. And well, I was hoping for some sort of like a callback, like I remember my, but no. Okay, that's fine.
Right. Okay.
I
All
can
right.
make something up.
Right. Just pretend. That'd be so funny. Nobody would correct you. You go like, oh yeah, no, my Nicaraguan cousins are always telling me about Dios de los Muertos. It'd be just your little in joke, just with yourself. Okay. Endorsements. Like, what have you been listening to, watching that you want to recommend? Jamie, do you have anything for us?
Sex ed, sex education.
Just
That
as a
is
concept, that
no. Yes.
Well, she's pro
But
that as well.
sure.
I am pro sex education. But no, the show on Netflix,
Huh.
starring Gillian Anderson, and yes, it is fantastic. It's in its third season, and it is just really funny and poignant. It's kind of a dramedy, but I would say it's more of a comedy the last season, but it's very much dealing with, the budding of youth and sexuality being explored, but not
Hmm.
just in a one-time part of life, but throughout the span of, adolescence to into into adulthood.
Huh.
And it's hysterical. It's just really funny, and it does talk about a lot of concepts that people should know. It talks, and even this new season is very much about educating teenagers about sex instead of just good old fashioned abstinence,
Huh.
which we all know works so well. So,
I mean,
but
I guess
it's
actual abstinence does work well, but just expecting people to be abstinent is the problem.
well,
Right.
exactly. You're right. You will not get pregnant if you do not have sex. That is true.
This is amazing.
But
I
let's
haven't heard of this show at all. So okay, so this is on
really.
Netflix.
Oh
No, yeah.
man, yeah. Gillian Anderson plays she's a sex therapist and an author of like multiple books, and she becomes the sex ed teacher of this high school, and it's set in Britain. So it's set in the UK. So of course everyone's
Man, that
got
actor
those.
is busy.
Yeah.
I mean, she's in so much. That's amazing.
And
Okay,
she's
cool.
pregnant in the show. She's a latent, like, this whole talk about like sexuality is not just with, like, it's sex and reproduction, which they call
Hmm.
SRE, in like or sexual education reproduction. So,
Huh.
and it's this whole last episode I just watched. I'm only into the third episode of the third season, but she's talking about, she's going through pregnancy as a woman later in life, and Daryl Hannah at age 61 is pregnant, or maybe she's already given birth. And this is something, yeah, this is something that
Okay.
women have been, getting pregnant later in life. And now the average, like, first time mom is, even that, the age has gone up. So in some ways it's good, some ways maybe not. But that it talks about, like, yes, there are certain risks, but it also talks about, like, the way society views women of a certain age procreating and
Mm,
having children. And, well, I guess that's the same thing, but you know
sure.
um and the difference between that and what a man gets to be. Whereas, like, a woman getting pregnant and having a child in her 40s, people are like, oh, you're going to be geriatric parents. Oh, isn't that terrible to do to your child? You're going to die so young. Meanwhile, you can die at any age. There's plenty of kids out
Right.
there who die when their parents are young and healthy, or young and sick.
Sure.
And that's, I don't know, it's just like I said, I don't want to take up all the time talking about the show, but I could. It is really good. And like I said, really funny and poignant at the same time. So definitely worth a watch. I think y'all will enjoy it. It's very visually graphic. Not visually. Actually, I wouldn't say visually. Orically graphic. Like the language on here is
Okay.
like wow. So you learn a few terms I didn't know. So, but it's
Like,
yeah.
what is it, Manbell? Is that one of them?
Yeah, nail. I thought I still think I invented that term. Like I'm pretty sure because I've been saying it for a long time.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you. That's a good tip. Drew, what about you?
So, first of all, Doom Patrol is back on HBO Max. I have not had a chance to watch any of the new season, but I'm really looking forward to, spending some time with those characters again as soon as I can, because I find a lot of comfort in that show. But, HBO Max has done something that I have enjoying, which in a way it's kind of charming that it even exists, which is Batman the Audio Adventure. Speaking of Batman, Jason.
Yeah.
And it's a old-fashioned audio drama with an all-star cast. It's got Jeffrey Wright, it's got John Leguizamo, Rosario Dawson, Seth Meyers, a whole lot of SN people, Keenan Thompson, just like a lot of people, like famous people lending their my favorite on the show so far is not anybody I would have ever thought of in this part, but Brent Spiner from Star Trek Data is playing Joker, and he kills it. He is so good as the
No
Joker.
kidding.
Yeah.
See it.
And it's I like the style of it. It's kind of halfway in between being the sort of humorous Batman of the Adam West Batman and the noir Batman of Batman the Animated Series. So it strikes like a stylistic balance that I really enjoy. So it's really well done. The episodes are all about 30 minutes. They're fun. They're exciting. They have good takes on the characters, and I think that if you are a Batman fan, you'll definitely find some to enjoy about it. And Jason, actually, I think you would get a kick out of it. It's something you could listen to while working too.
So am I understanding this correctly? You go to HBO Max and you just choose this, and you just like
Yep.
it's just an audio thing that you're playing
Yeah.
on HBO Max. Okay.
Batman the Audio Adventures.
That's really
I mean,
cool. I
there's
hope they do a lot more like that. That's a great idea. That's really cool.
It's a really interesting thing to think that this exists in 2021. Is this like basically throwback entertainment of a bunch of people got together and goes, let's do a Batman radio show essentially. And it's well done. So check it out.
Fabulous. Wow. Julia, what about you?
Well, I remembered what I wanted to endorse last time, and I'd forgotten what it was. And that was, so I had watched the first bunch of seasons of Lucifer. Then when it had gone to Netflix, I had watched it, and I wasn't thrilled with what they did with it. I just didn't like it. But I watched this last batch of episodes, the final episodes at the series finale, and I really liked it. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was a brilliant series finale. It really just it would tied everything together beautifully, really just moving and cool. So if you gave up on Lucifer as I did, or if you liked it and you haven't watched his last batch of episodes, I would recommend that. And then I watched the first season of Nine Perfect Strangers, which I know people had been talking. Is that what it's called?
I think
Nine
that's
Perfect
right.
Strangers? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Nicole Kidman movie, the Nicole Kidman series.
Balky? Is Balky Bartakamos on it?
Yeah, it's 9 of him,
Standing.
him times
Yeah.
9.
Cousin Larry.
Yeah, let's see.
It
I'm
is
just
called
looking
Nine
up.
Perfect
It
Strangers.
is called
That's
that.
right.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
So nine cousin Larrys. 8 cousin Larrys and a Balky. Yes, there was. Now that reminds me of this is my brother Daryl, my other brother.
The funny thing is now I'm picturing like literally 9 Marklin Bakers just
Yeah,
lined up
exactly.
along the wall.
But no, it was at first. It starts off a little slow for me. Honestly, I thought the first 2 episodes. I was like, okay, thanks. We've met everybody. Now what? But it is fun and interesting to see kind of what's the deal with Nicole Kidman's character, like why? Because she's like the head. I didn't really like her performance as much as I've liked her in other things. She plays this like Russian. I think I was a little. I don't think that the Russian accent was that convincing. I could be, just because I know how how she talked. But anyway, she's supposedly this Russian owner of this like retreat. That's just the first of all, the sets are gorgeous. I'm like, these obviously the people the people who spend the full money for the thing are spending a lot of money because it's very swank. And Melissa McCarthy makes the show worth watching, in my opinion. She's just brilliant. But there's a lot of great. Michael Shannon is on it. There's a lot of great performances. And it's just interesting to kind of watch like what's happening with these people who have all come to this place to heal and it's just kind of there's a lot of just normal like retreat kind of things where you're supposedly having these cleanses, but then you're like, wait, what are they putting in those smoothies? And then it's like, wait, what's going on here? Why does she know so much about who are these people? So it's kind of fun as you like unearth these different little secrets and things that happen. And then the last couple episodes are just batshit. So it's a really interesting show. Yeah, if you're like me and the first episode feels a little slow to you and you're you're only getting through it because of Melissa McCarthy, hang into the third episode because that's where it gets really good.
I've been so curious about that one, so I'm glad
Mhm.
you recommended it.
Yeah,
It's
Melissa McCarthy's
certainly
great.
beautiful. I mean, and I'm a sucker for anything that takes place in like a beautiful setting. And like you say, well, it's the same boring show that you saw last week, but this time it's in a beautiful mountain
Oh,
village
this
or
is
something.
gorgeous.
I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, because we watched what was Julia, what was the series? It was a series of 3 Spanish films that all took
Oh,
place in
right.
the
Yeah.
gorgeous
I-
Spanish
I'll,
village. We'll have to come
I'll
back
look it up
next
and I'll
week.
tell you.
It
Yeah.
becomes like it now. It's like a trivia question we've left. What's the Spanish Village show? What next week we'll
No,
be
I'll
back.
figure it out while you're talking about your endorsement.
I I I have no endorsement.
You
I've
had no
been
endorsement last week, Jason.
I've been so
He's
You're
been
busy.
working
copping
hard.
out. Pull
I've been
something out.
so
You got
busy with it.
something.
I mean, I will say this. I will say this. Okay,
No
this is an
vampire
endorsement, but
hookers.
people might push back against this. Our children and Joya and we went to visit our older daughter at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, and we went to see Dear Evan Hansen. Dear Evan Hansen has probably been written about more scathingly by critics than any musical I can think of since Grease 2. It has just been just hammered. Well, Cats got hammered, but anyway, this has been hammered like that. But I mean, honestly, we cried all the way through. It was interesting. It was problematic. It drove a lot of discussion in the car. So
What is it
we,
called?
Dear
Dear
Evan
Evan
Hansen.
Hansen, the film,
Oh,
Yeah, it's the new film
version of
version
the
of the
musical.
Broadway show. So, lots of people are like, "Oh, yeah, it's problematic." There's all kinds of like uh, uh, troubling questions about the way that it treats mental illness and so forth. But our very sensitive children found it very compelling, and
But I
so
actually, on my own, without reading any of the reviews, had the same criticisms that some of the reviews have. So I do think they're, they're not without, what do you call it? Like
no,
they're
it's
Well,
fitting.
all
as we have discovered tonight, you can enjoy something and still think the criticisms are valid.
are
Yeah,
valid. Yeah, I mean
valid. Yeah.
the criticism that is simply not valid, I would say, is people have been complaining that Ben Platt, who starred in Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway, is too old to be playing the character
Yeah, that's stupid.
in the
Anybody
movie,
who
and
watched
that's dumb.
90210 needs to shut the hell up about
Anybody
that.
who's seen
Grease.
Grease knows that is not just forget that.
It's
Just
just how it
that's like
is.
not
Or
even
or
worth
or or,
mentioning.
or enjoys KJ Appa with his shirt off on Riverdale.
Right,
You know.
absolutely. Or while we're at it, Roddy McDowall was 38 years old when he played the psychotic high school student in Lord Loveduck. And and his big enemy was Harvey Korman, who was 39. Nobody cared. It just didn't. He was 38 years old. So anyway,
Anyway, before we leave, it's The Legacy of the Bones was the name of the film, the first one,
yeah.
and it takes place in Navarre in northern
Oh
Spain.
my God,
The
those
town is called
movies
Elizondo.
are beautiful and sexy and
The
creepy and
Boslan
scary.
trilogy. The
And
Boslan trilogy.
oh, so beautiful. Yes, must see. Those are Legacy of the Bones. You've
Yeah,
got
I
to
guess
check
it's the
those out.
second one. I guess it's the Invisible Guardian, the Legacy of the Bones, and Offering to the Storm. But yes, Boslan trilogy.
Yeah.
So
So those are
cool.
classy and good. Dear Evan Hansen, your mileage may vary, but we actually
Yeah,
really had a
the
good time.
music is beautiful. It's just you know, there's some issues. But
I mean,
whatever. It's up to you to
4
decide.
people blubbering in the theater. We're all like crying
Oh
at
yeah, no, I
the
was
movie.
crying, but that's why that's what my criticism is that I found it depressing, and I felt like I felt more despairing. I didn't feel despairing going in. I felt quite chipper and happy, and I felt despairing when I left, which I think is a problem because the whole point is it's supposed to be about, you know, like, oh, don't give up, you know, don't kill yourself. And I kind of think it maybe doesn't get there. I kind of feel like it's like maybe you should though. I mean, I don't know. So I really that's why I thought it was too dark. I thought that I didn't feel like it ended up in an uplifting enough way
Yeah.
that it did what it's supposed to do. So I think it covers some really powerful, important topics, but I think that it's really dark. I think it
Well,
ends
any
dark.
film that makes you talk this much, that's a
Yeah.
good endorsement. And
Yep.
so
No,
that's
it's well done, and the music's beautiful.
there you go. All right. We will be back next week with what promises to be a fascinating film, Candyman, Day of the Dead.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Thank you
I
so much,
warned you.
Jamie. Thanks for
I
joining us
warned
again.
you.
Drew, I'm listening and I understand and I feel warned. I do. So everybody be excellent to one another and I'll check out Sex Ed on Netflix. That sounds really good.
Yeah. Sex
Um,
education.
all right. Oh yes. Okay. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Night.
Bye. See you
Bye.
next week.